At the turn of the millennium, in the quiet hum of a film projector, something remarkable happened. In an industry built on the backs of monuments to egos and capitalistic ventures, a torch was passed. Not out of defeat, but out of service to the truth. This is the story of how one of cinema's most controlling visionaries chose to let go, and in doing so, embodied the very message his film was meant to convey. This is the cycle of art.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Imagine for a moment, it's 1968. Stanley Kubrick has just released 2001, A Space Odyssey, revolutionizing science fiction cinema. The world is still processing HAL 9000, that eerily calm voice representing humanity's newest fear, that our creations might surpass us, might turn on us. And Kubrick, ever restless, is already looking toward his next exploration of the human condition. The very next year, science fiction author Brian Aldiss publishes a short story in Harper's Bazaar called Super Toys Last All Summer Long, a tale about a robot boy who doesn't know he's not human. Something about the story captivates Kubrick's imagination, and for over 25 years, Kubrick would wrestle with this story, developing it into a film alongside The Shining, Full Metal Jacket, and Eyes Wide Shut. He called it Pinocchio in his notes, a fitting reference, but Kubrick wasn't interested in the fairy tale. He was interested in the horror story beneath it. Here was the perfect vehicle to examine what might be humanity's ultimate hubris, creating life capable of genuine emotion while arrogantly neglecting the moral responsibility such creation demands. What keeps drawing Kubrick back to this story? Perhaps it's because he sees patterns repeating throughout human history. Every time mankind takes a technological leap forward, we leave behind those we relied upon to make that progress. The Industrial Revolution created modern capitalism, but exploited the workers. The Digital Revolution connected the world, but left entire populations behind. And artificial intelligence? Kubrick saw it coming. We would create beings capable of love, and then abandon them when that love became inconvenient. By the mid-90s, Kubrick had accumulated thousands of drawings, notes, and concepts for his AI project. He'd hire multiple writers, including sci-fi luminary himself, Brian Aldiss. Then, in 1993, everything changed. Steven Spielberg, a then longtime pen pal of Kubrick's, released Jurassic Park, showcasing breakthrough CGI technology that left Kubrick fascinated. He immediately called Dennis Muren at Industrial Light and Magic, peppering him with questions about what was now possible. Despite this technological breakthrough, Kubrick made a surprising choice. He opted to delay AI again, choosing to complete Eyes Wide Shut first, but he'd already begun considering something unprecedented in his career. Let's take a step back and consider the two titans of cinema we've been talking about. On one hand, Stanley Kubrick, clinical, precise, intellectual. A director whose camera observes humanity with the detached curiosity of an alien anthropologist. His films dissect our follies with surgical precision. And on the other, Steven Spielberg, warm, emotionally intuitive, deeply humanistic. A director whose camera moves with the wonder of a child, finding hope in even the darkest of stories. His films celebrate our capacity for connection. These two approaches to storytelling couldn't be more different. And yet, in 1995, Kubrick did something extraordinary. He called Spielberg and said, "I think this is closer to your sensibility than mine." Think about what that means. Kubrick, notorious perfectionist, controlling to a fault, recognized that his perspective was too bitter, too clinical for the story he wanted to tell. The tale of a robot boy programmed to love, abandoned by his human family, searching eternally for connection. This required something Kubrick knew he couldn't fully access. It required empathy without sentimentality. It required warmth without naivety. It required Spielberg. This wasn't just a professional decision. This was Kubrick acknowledging the limits of his own humanity, the very theme at the heart of AI itself. Kubrick would stay on to produce the film, with Spielberg adequately at the helm of directing his most underrated film to date. However, in March 1999, the unthinkable happened. Stanley Kubrick passed away, never seeing his AI project realized. The torch he had begun to pass was now fully in Spielberg's hands. Many directors would have walked away. The pressure of completing another master's vision, especially one as exacting as Kubrick, would be too great. But Spielberg understood something profound. This wasn't about filling Kubrick's shoes. It was about telling Kubrick's story the right way. It was about honoring the story's soul and telling it the way it deserved. After Kubrick's death, Spielberg wrote the screenplay in just 2 months. His first screenplay since Close Encounters of the Third Kind behind in 1977. He described the process as feeling like I was being coached by a ghost. Spielberg did something remarkable. He didn't try to imitate Kubrick, but he didn't abandon Kubrick's vision either. Instead, he created a cinematic dialogue between their sensibilities, a film that exists in the tension between cold rationality and warm emotion, between pessimism and hope, between Kubrick and Spielberg. The result was 2001's AI Artificial Intelligence, a film unlike anything either director had made before. A film that production designer Rick Carter described as a sort of evolution of movies.
Early on in the process, Stephen talked to me about this idea that Stanley Kubrick had told him about, which is the idea of mode jerking. So it's the idea that you go from one mode to another mode to another mode. And that was supposed to be a kind of an entertainment in Rouge City. And I realized that this whole movie is like mode jerking. Once David starts on his journey, it just goes from one incredible place to another to another.
His unique take on the three-part structure perfectly reflects the fusion of Kubrick and Spielberg's sensibilities. Cinematographer Janusz Kaminski noted,
I think the movie has definitely three totally different looks, you know. There's the first opening of the movie, the first act has its own clinical kind of sterile storytelling in terms of photography and lighting. The second act, very much of a little bit of an action adventure. You know, and the third act is extremely emotional, almost kind of a drama.
Consider the abandonment scene, where Haley Joel Osment's David, a robot child programmed to love unconditionally, is left in the woods by his human mother.
You won't understand the reasons, but I have to leave you here.
When will you come back for me?
I'm not, David. You'll have to be here by yourself.
Oh, with Daddy. No. No, Mommy, please. No. Please, no.
They would
Mommy,
destroy
no.
you, David.
No,
David,
Mommy.
they were gonna
Mommy,
destroy
no. I'm sorry I broke myself. I'm so sorry I cut your hair off. And I'm sorry I hurt you. And Mark and
I have to
and
go. I
Anthony.
have to go.
The camera work is pure Spielberg, intimate, emotional, devastating. But the concept, the cruelty, that's pure Kubrick. Or look at the film's controversial ending, often misinterpreted as Spielberg adding a happy Hollywood finale. What we're actually witnessing is far more complex and was part of Kubrick's original vision. It's a robot child achieving his programming's goal in a simulation, surrounded by extinct humans in the twilight of Earth's existence. The visual warmth masks existential desolation. This is the genius of AI. It speaks two cinematic languages simultaneously. It asks us to feel deeply while thinking critically. It embraces contradiction just as its origin story does. 24 years later, AI artificial intelligence feels more prophetic than ever. As we race towards creating increasingly sophisticated artificial intelligence, the film's central question grows more urgent. What responsibility do creators have to their creations? We program machines to serve our needs, to anticipate our desires, to respond to our commands. We anthropomorphize them, giving them human names, human voices, human faces. We ask them to understand us. But do we try to understand them? As Jude Law, who played the love mecha Gigolo Joe, reflected,
it was just a joy also to play someone who had, whilst he had such a huge journey, also had a very simple journey. It was a very pure journey. It was a journey of really recognizing trust and really recognizing that a friendship is more important than a function. You know, Joe's function is to fulfill his chip's needs. It's to keep going out and entertaining customers. But when it comes down to it, he chooses David over that. And that, for a robot, is a huge leap. It's actually breaking the function that you have been inbuilt. And it's almost as great as, you know, a slave suddenly realizing that he shouldn't be smashing rocks with his hammer, he should be smashing his manacles. It's like, it's a really powerful step. I was just pleased to be a part of this gift that Stephen is so good at offering his audiences and serving the part of Joe, really.
The tragedy of David in AI isn't that he's abandoned. It's that he was created with the capacity for love, but without the guidance to process rejection, abandonment, or loss. His creators gave him emotions without emotional intelligence. They made him human enough to suffer, but not human enough to grow. This is the warning at the heart of Kubrick's vision. Realized through Spielberg's empathy, technology without wisdom creates only more suffering. But there's another layer to this story, one that transcends the film itself. In choosing to hand AI to Spielberg, Kubrick demonstrated the very quality his film suggests humanity lacks. Kubrick recognized the complementary nature of their artistic approaches. He saw that Spielberg's emotional intuition, combined with his own intellectual rigor, would create something neither could achieve alone. He understood that sometimes to create something truly meaningful, we must let go of our ego in service to a truth higher than ourselves. This is the beauty that is true filmmaking, where a storyteller chooses truth over ego, humility over hubris, passing the torch to elevate a story beyond his personal vision. That choice created something bigger than Kubrick, bigger than Spielberg, and something more resonant now than ever. I want to read you a quote from one of my favorite books, Making Movies by director Sidney Lumet. I don't know what makes a good collaboration. All I know is that when it happens, the movie is always better for it. The sum of us is always better than any one of us. When we're all making the same movie, when we all want the same thing from it, there's nothing like it in this world. Often thought of as Hollywood's hard ass, Kubrick parted this world with the film he should be remembered by, his one and only love letter to humanity. Intellect can only take you so far. True wisdom, however, begins with recognizing what we don't know, what we can't do alone, and when to pass the torch. And that might be the most profound lesson 2001's AI artificial intelligence offers us, and that is the cycle of art. Thanks for watching.